I showed up with my kids in their best outfits, holding handwritten cards. My mom cracked the door open and said, "It's just not a good time for your energy." I said nothing. Just kissed my daughter's forehead and left. 30 minutes later my brother called, yelling, "Did you just cancel the trust disbursement?" I couldn't get over what my mother did. It kept replaying in my head while I drove home with the kids in the back seat, still holding their little handmade cards like they were waiting for a second chance. She didn't even open the door all the way. She just peeked out and said it. "Now's not the best time for your energy." That's the word she used. Energy. Like I was some kind of bad aura she wanted to keep away. She didn't even look at the kids properly. No hello, no smile, nothing. Just that cold line before she shut the door. I didn't say a word. I kissed my daughter on the forehead and we left. By the time we got home, I was still fuming. I didn't say anything in the car because I didn't want to ruin the kids' mood more than it already was. But the second I stepped into the kitchen, something inside me snapped. I grabbed my laptop, logged into the trust account, and without even thinking twice, I canceled the payment scheduled for the end of the month. It was supposed to be automatic, just like every month for the last 3 years. Thousands of dollars, gone from their pockets just like that. I didn't even feel guilty. I didn't tell anyone I did it either. I just went back to washing dishes, trying to calm down. But not even 30 minutes passed before my phone started vibrating on the counter. My brother's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. On the 4th call, I picked up. He didn't even wait. "What the hell is wrong with you? You cancelled the trust payment? Are you insane?" I didn't say anything at first. I just let him keep yelling because it was starting to become very clear. None of them called me about the kids. None of them called to ask why we left. Just straight to the money. I let him go on, just listening. He was pacing somewhere. I could hear his heavy breathing like he was about to combust. He said Dad was furious, that Mom was crying, that I was being dramatic and selfish. He actually said that. I asked him one question. "Did Mom tell you why we left today?" He went quiet for a second, then said something about Mom not feeling well. I told him that wasn't it. I told him how we came dressed up, the kids with their cards, how she opened the door just to tell me my energy wasn't wanted. He started laughing. Said I was being sensitive, that I always overreacted. That's when it hit me. He didn't care. None of them cared. I hung up on him. 10 minutes later, Dad called. He didn't yell. He went straight to the guilt trip. Said the trust fund wasn't for him and Mom, it was for the house upkeep, the taxes, the stuff I'd never understand because I didn't live there anymore. I reminded him that I paid off their mortgage 5 years ago. That I'd been covering those taxes. That I paid for their car repairs, their vacations, their freaking satellite TV subscription. His tone changed then. He said if I was going to start keeping score, then maybe we should rethink the whole family relationship. I told him that was a good idea. I blocked his number after that. Then I blocked my brother's. I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until I set my phone down. For the first time in my life, I felt this strange combination of rage and relief. Like I'd just slammed a door shut that should have been closed years ago. The next day my brother showed up at my house. I didn't invite him in. He stood on the porch with that smug look he always had when he thought he was about to manipulate me. He said Mom hadn't stopped crying, that Dad was furious and barely slept, and that I was being a brat. A brat, his exact word. I asked him again if Mom told him what she said to me at the door. He waved it off, said she was probably having a bad day. I told him it was never just one bad day. Every time I came around, it was the same. Disinterest, impatience. Like me and the kids were a burden they barely tolerated. He said they didn't mean it that way. Then he asked, like it was nothing, if I was going to restore the trust payment or if I was just trying to teach everyone a lesson. That's when I laughed. Because that's all he cared about. Not the kids, not what Mom said, just the damn money. I told him it was done. No more payments. No more easy rides. I said if Mom and Dad wanted to talk to me, they could call, but not to discuss money. His face changed completely. He called me ungrateful, selfish, crazy. He actually stood on my porch and said, "You wouldn't even have what you have if it weren't for the family." That part stuck with me. Because I'd built everything I had. My career, my house, my life. I didn't owe them any of it. But they had rewritten the story in their heads, that somehow they were the reason for my success. I told him we were done here. I closed the door. He stood outside for another minute, then drove off. That night I sat in the living room while the kids played, and I realized something that should have been obvious. My family never actually liked me. They just liked what I did for them. The next morning, my brother showed up at my door without even texting ahead. He just stood there like he expected me to let him in automatically, the same way I always had. But I didn't move. I just stood in the doorway waiting for whatever performance he had prepared. He didn't waste time pretending to be concerned. Said Mom hadn't stopped crying since yesterday, Dad was livid, and I had apparently set off some huge mess in the family. Then he paused like that was supposed to make me feel bad. I asked him straight up if Mom told him what she said to me when I came over with the kids. He looked away for a second, then mumbled that she'd said I caught her on a bad day. I told him that wasn't the truth. She said, "Now's not the best time for your energy," and then closed the door on her grandkids like they didn't exist. He just stood there shrugging like it wasn't a big deal. Said I was being sensitive. He even told me to stop making a scene out of one bad interaction, that people say things when they're stressed. That was the moment I realized he wasn't even pretending to care about what actually happened. He was just there to smooth things over, to get the money flowing again. So I asked him the only thing that really mattered to him. "You came here because of the trust payment, didn't you?" He laughed like it was obvious. Said I couldn't just pull the rug out from under them like that they'd made plans around that money. He said I was punishing the whole family because of a misunderstanding. Then he added, "If you don't want to see them, fine, but don't mess with the financial stuff." That's when I got pissed. I told him no one in that family ever asked me how I was doing. No one ever asked about my kids. I was just the ATM with a pulse. He started to argue, but I cut him off and told him the payments were over. Period. His face twisted into something I'd never seen before, like pure disgust. He told me I was being ungrateful, that I wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for the family. That part almost made me laugh because it was such a lie. Everything I had, my house, my job, my savings, I earned on my own. I told him not to come back here unless he wanted to have an honest conversation, not about money. Then I shut the door in his face. He stood on my porch for a while, maybe expecting me to open the door again. I didn't. I watched from the window as he finally got in his car and drove off. That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat alone in the living room thinking about everything. Every visit to my parents was the same. They'd either ignore me, make little passive comments about my choices, or act like the kids were just noise. The only time their mood changed was when I transferred money or paid for something they couldn't afford. I don't know why it took me so long to see it clearly. They didn't like me. They never did. They liked what I could give them. And the worst part? I'd let it go on for years. 2 days passed and I didn't hear anything from them. No calls, no texts, nothing. I knew them well enough to know it wasn't over. My brother wasn't the type to give up when there was money on the line. Sure enough, on the third day, I got an email from my mother. A short, formal message. She wrote that she was disappointed in me, that I was behaving selfishly, and that I'd embarrassed the family. She said they'd always made space for me despite my difficult personality, and that it was sad I was now weaponizing money against my own blood. I read it twice, just to make sure I wasn't missing some hidden joke. She really saw herself as the victim here. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to my personal folder called Reminders, where I kept little things like this: old messages, screenshots of passive-aggressive texts, all the receipts I'd ignored for years. It was my own little archive of proof that I wasn't crazy for feeling how I felt. Later that evening, my dad called my work phone. I don't even know how he remembered the number because he'd never called it before. I let it ring out. Then he sent a text. Asterisk, "I didn't raise you to be spiteful. This isn't the daughter I know." Asterisk. That part made me laugh. The daughter he knew? The daughter he knew was the one who sent thousands of dollars every month, stayed quiet when they made backhanded comments, brought the kids over just to be ignored, and still pretended we were some functional family. It was like they couldn't process the version of me that wasn't paying their bills. The next weekend, the kids asked if we were going to visit Grandma and Grandpa. I told them no, that we'd do something fun instead. I didn't offer details because I didn't want them involved in any of this, but it killed me to see their little faces fall just a bit. That's when I decided something. I wasn't just cutting off the money. I was done entirely. No visits, no calls, no updates. They'd made it clear I was only as good as my wallet. So if I wasn't paying, I wasn't wanted. The funny thing is, the more I thought about it, the freer I felt. Like I'd been walking around with weights strapped to my legs for years and I just cut them off without even realizing it. But I knew it wasn't over. People like my family, they don't just let go when the money stops. And I was right. The next hit came sooner than I expected, and it was a lot messier than I thought it would be. It started with a call from an unknown number. I ignored it, but then my phone lit up with a text from my cousin Emily. She asked if everything was okay between me and my parents because she just got off the phone with my mother, who apparently was devastated and didn't know how to go on because I turned my back on the family. I didn't even know they still talked to Emily. She lived 3 states away and only came around for weddings. I asked her what my mom told her. She sent me a screenshot of my mother's message, and it was worse than I expected. It said I'd cut off contact because of some silly misunderstanding, that I decided my career and new life were more important than family, and that I'd taken the grandchildren away from their only grandparents out of cruelty. Reading that, I felt this deep anger I couldn't shake. She didn't mention the trust payment being cancelled. She made it sound like I just exiled them from my life for no reason. Emily told me she didn't want to pick sides but thought I should know what was being said. I thanked her, told her it was more complicated than Mom was making it sound. She didn't press, but I could tell she was already uncomfortable being in the middle. A couple hours later, my brother texted me again. Just 4 words. "You've really done it." No explanation, no follow-up, just that. I didn't reply. I just kept waiting for the next shoe to drop, and it did, on social media of all places. My mother posted one of those vague martyr-style statuses about how family will hurt you the most, about betrayal, about the pain of raising a child who forgets their roots. The comments started filling up with pity from her friends. People I didn't even know started messaging me, asking if I was okay, telling me I should reach out to my poor mother who misses me terribly. She was building her case in public, painting me as the cold-hearted daughter who abandoned her aging parents. That was the moment I knew they weren't just mad. They were preparing for war. A social war, a public one. If they couldn't guilt me privately, they'd try to ruin me publicly. But what they didn't know was that I had every message, every email, every petty comment saved. And I wasn't just going to sit quietly anymore.